Imagine you're standing in your kitchen, looking at what's on your counter. Maybe there's a loaf of bread, a bottle of soda, a couple of snacks you keep around for convenience. They're familiar. They're part of your routine. But here's something you might not realize. Some of the foods you've trusted for years could quietly be wearing down your brain, making it harder for you to think clearly, remember details, and stay sharp. The changes happen slowly, over months or years, so it's easy to miss the signs until they're impossible to ignore. And for anyone over 60, when every day of good memory really matters, this is a wake-up call worth paying attention to. Today, we're going to look at 6 surprising foods that can set you up for cognitive decline and dementia, and they're not always the ones you'd expect. Some of them hide in plain sight in your pantry. Some are things you might even think of as treats or not so bad in moderation. But the science says otherwise. We'll also talk about better choices you can make instead, so every meal you eat is working for your brain, not against it. Before we dive in, think about this. What's one food or drink you reach for almost every day without thinking about it? Keep that in mind as we go, because by the end of this video, you might see it in a very different light. Now, let's get started with the first one. Refined carbohydrates and sugary foods. That means things like cakes, pizza, white bread, syrups, anything made with white flour or loaded with added sugar. They don't just put you at risk for weight gain or diabetes. Over time, they can wrap your organs, including your brain, in a blanket of inflammation. It's called visceral fat, and it's not just sitting there doing nothing. It's actively releasing chemicals that make it harder for your brain cells to talk to each other. Imagine a phone line with static on it. That's what happens between your neurons when inflammation takes hold. Studies from the National Library of Medicine have linked diets high in sugar and refined carbs to a much higher risk of dementia, including Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And the problem is, you don't feel that damage right away. It's like a slow leak in your memory. One day you notice it's harder to recall a name. The next you're forgetting where you put your keys more often. The good news is you can start cutting down on these foods right now. Swap out white bread for whole grain, skip the pastries during the week, and replace sugary snacks with fruit or nuts. Every time you do, you're dialing down the inflammation and giving your brain a clearer line of communication. The second one is trans fats. These are artificial fats that were made to give foods a longer shelf life, to make them cheaper and easier to spread. You'll find them in fried foods, packaged snacks, baked goods, margarine, even some frozen meals. The problem is, they mess with your cholesterol in the worst way possible, raising the bad kind, lowering the good kind, and setting the stage for atherosclerosis, which is when plaque builds up inside your arteries. Think of your arteries as a garden hose. Over time, trans fats make that hose stiff and clogged, and when that happens in the blood vessels leading to your brain, you're looking at less oxygen, less nutrition, and a much higher risk of cognitive decline. In fact, research in the Journal of Neurology found that high trans fat intake can raise dementia risk by 50 to 75%. That's not a small number. The practical step here is simple but powerful. Read your labels and avoid anything that lists partially hydrogenated oils. Cooking more meals at home with olive oil or avocado oil is a great start. Even cutting your trans fat intake in half can have an immediate benefit for your circulation and your brain. The third one is sugary drinks, especially soda. 1 can of regular soda can have 9 teaspoons of sugar. 9. That's more than most people should have in an entire day. And diet soda isn't the safe escape hatch it might seem. The artificial sweeteners can also disrupt your metabolism. When your body is constantly flooded with sugar, it becomes resistant to insulin, the hormone that helps your cells absorb energy. That resistance doesn't just lead to diabetes. It also disrupts your brain's signaling pathways, leading to stress and even death of brain cells. Scientists call it apoptosis, but what it really means is your brain is losing some of its workers, the ones that handle memory, mood, and focus. If you replace just 1 soda a day with water, sparkling water, or herbal tea, you're already making a huge difference. You're taking away a daily sugar spike that your brain doesn't have to recover from. And over weeks and months, that means a steadier mind, sharper recall, and better focus. The fourth one is processed foods. This includes most things that come in a box, bag, or can and last for months without refrigeration. They're convenient, but that convenience comes with a cost. Many processed foods are full of preservatives, artificial colors, flavors, and sweeteners that do nothing to nourish you and a lot to inflame your system. Some even carry tiny particles called microplastics which can end up in your bloodstream and, according to research in Italy, in your arteries. Microplastics are so small you can't see them, but they can still trigger inflammation and help plaque form in your blood vessels. Imagine sand slowly filling a pipe. That's the kind of blockage we're talking about. Choosing fresh or minimally processed foods whenever you can is one of the most brain-protective habits you can build. Even small shifts, like replacing packaged instant soup with homemade broth and vegetables, can cut your exposure and give your brain more of what it needs to function well. Number 5 is certain types of seafood. Now, seafood can be incredibly healthy, but the type matters a lot. Large predatory fish like swordfish, bluefin tuna, shark, and tilefish can carry high levels of mercury. Mercury is a potent neurotoxin. In its organic form, it can cross into your brain and interfere with neurotransmitters, the chemicals that control mood and cognition. It also sparks oxidative stress, which is like rust forming inside your brain cells, slowly breaking them down. Over time, this damage can show up as memory lapses, slower thinking, and even mood changes. The fix here isn't to give up seafood altogether, but to choose lower mercury options like salmon, sardines, or trout. These still give you the brain-boosting omega-3s without the toxic load. Finally, for this section, alcohol. It's often seen as harmless in moderation, even healthy in the case of red wine. But here's the truth, alcohol itself is toxic to brain cells. It can stun or even kill neurons outright, especially if you drink regularly over many years. If you've ever had a hangover, you've felt some of that damage, the fogginess, the headache, the slower thinking. Over time, alcohol accelerates cognitive decline and increases dementia risk. Cutting back, or even taking breaks from alcohol, can give your brain room to recover and function more efficiently. You can still get the polyphenol from red wine by eating grapes or blueberries, without the toxic side effects. Now, I know this is a lot to take in, especially if some of these foods have been part of your daily life for years. But here's the thing, your brain is remarkably adaptable. The changes you make today can start protecting it tomorrow. And avoiding these 6 categories isn't about giving up pleasure. It's about trading the things that chip away at your memory for foods that strengthen it. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. The foods that don't just protect your brain, but actively help it grow new connections, improve memory, and keep you sharp well into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. So now that you know what to avoid, let's talk about the good stuff, the foods that work like a shield and a repair crew for your brain. These aren't magic pills, but when you make them part of your regular meals, you're stacking the odds in your favor. You're giving your brain the building blocks it needs to stay sharp, process information quickly, and keep those precious memories right where you can reach them. The first group is omega-3 fatty acids. You've probably heard the term before, but what you might not know is just how deeply these fats are woven into the structure of your brain. Your brain cells are surrounded by membranes, and omega-3s, especially DHA and EPA, are part of what keeps those membranes flexible and able to communicate. Think of them as the oil that keeps the hinges on a door moving smoothly. Without enough, those hinges start to stick, and it's harder for signals to pass from one cell to another. Omega-3s also help calm inflammation, which we talked about earlier as one of the brain's biggest threats. They protect the lining of your blood vessels, all 400 miles of them in your brain alone, so blood can flow freely, carrying oxygen and nutrients right where they're needed. That means less risk of tiny blockages that can damage brain tissue. You can get omega-3s from fish, but if you want to avoid mercury, plant-based sources like flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, and hemp seeds are excellent. Sprinkle them on oatmeal, blend them into smoothies, or just snack on a handful of walnuts in the afternoon. Every time you do, you're giving your brain exactly what it craves to stay resilient. The second group is berries, especially the ones rich in a natural compound called ellagic acid. This includes strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, and cranberries. Ellagic acid is like a bodyguard for your brain cells. It helps block the production of inflammatory chemicals and shields against oxidative stress. That's the rust effect I mentioned earlier. And the color in these berries, from pigments called anthocyanins, does more than just look pretty. It supports the growth of new neurons, which is something scientists once thought was impossible in adults. One study from the University of Cincinnati found that eating just 1 cup of ripe strawberries every day for 6 weeks improved memory. That's not years of commitment, that's less than 2 months to start seeing changes. And it's not just about memory. Berries can help with executive function, the part of your brain that helps you plan, focus, and juggle multiple tasks without getting overwhelmed. An easy way to add them is to keep frozen berries on hand. They're just as nutritious as fresh, often more affordable, and you can toss them into yogurt, cereal, or even a salad. The third group is cruciferous vegetables. These are things like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, and bok choy. What sets them apart is a group of sulfur-containing compounds that break down into something called sulforaphane. That's a mouthful, but here's what it does. It activates a pathway in your body that turns on your own antioxidant defense system. It's like flipping a switch that tells your cells, all right, it's time to clean house and repair damage. This matters because your brain is constantly under attack from free radicals, unstable molecules that can damage DNA, proteins, and cell membranes. Sulforaphane helps neutralize those free radicals before they can cause trouble. It also keeps inflammation in check, which means your brain cells can work without constantly being distracted by fire alarms going off in the background. In parts of the world where cruciferous vegetables are eaten daily, rates of cognitive decline are much lower. And you don't have to eat giant servings to benefit. Even a cup of steamed broccoli or a quick stir-fry with bok choy a few times a week can give your brain a steady supply of these protective compounds. Here's something to remember. No single food is going to make or break your brain health. It's about patterns over time. Every time you replace a harmful choice with one of these protective foods, you're tipping the balance toward clarity, focus, and independence. You're giving yourself a better shot at remembering the stories, the faces, and the moments that make life worth living. So let's put it all together. You've got 6 foods to cut back on: refined carbs, trans fats, sugary drinks, processed foods, high-mercury fish, and alcohol. And you've got 3 food groups to bring forward: omega-3s, berries, and cruciferous vegetables. Each choice you make is like a vote for the kind of brain you want in the years ahead. Imagine yourself 10 years from now, sitting around a table with your family. You're telling a story from decades ago, remembering the details, the faces, the laughter. That's the payoff for the choices you make today. It's not about fear, it's about possibility. You have more control than you might think, and your brain is ready to respond if you give it the right tools. So here's my question for you. What's one change from this list you can start with this week? Is it swapping soda for sparkling water? Adding a handful of walnuts to your breakfast? Replacing the white bread with a whole grain option? Drop your answer in the comments because I'd love to hear what you're choosing for your brain. And if you want to keep learning practical, science-backed ways to protect your mind and your body, there's a video right here that's going to be a perfect next step for you.